Right, Rosie's in the lobby. I guess we should let her in. It's going to be another no intro episode. All right, she's coming in right now.
Hey, Rosie.
Hi.
Hey, sorry for that. We are 15 minutes late to this, and you've been sitting in the lobby for 15 minutes.
It's okay. It was very tense. It's like, when are they gonna arrive?
It's like it feels like the lobby at the dentist where you don't know you're gonna get in.
Yeah.
Where you can just stress and sweat. It's fine. You'll be fine.
Nobody will know. Nobody will know.
You know, we saw. It just made me think of something. Like, there's been a little wave in the last few weeks of new marketing podcasts that are kind of conversational like this one. Not gonna name names. It's good to have a new wave of podcasts doing what we do. It's great. We can inspire each other. But our one definitely feels like the DIY version. Like this one is like the French Nouvelle Vague film from the 70s. Like, we're very low budget. And then the other ones feels more like the blockbusters American one with the trailers and the intro at the beginning and the recaps and stuff. But we're not doing that shit.
You have a jingle.
We do have a jingle.
We do have a jingle, true. Yeah.
Thanks to
Jake.
That
makes it feel very pro.
Oh, yeah, brilliant.
The jingle is sick.
I've done my part, yeah. The rest is up to you.
Do you edit them at all?
Yes, sadly, we do edit them. Yes, they are. They're not. They don't need that much editing, but there's some annoying things like Yo's mic movements that need editing out constantly.
Because I decided to have a very free-flowing mic,
style.
So I can be free and move around when I talk.
For your karaoke pastimes, podcast day, karaoke night.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Karaoke. Yeah, let's say that.
I think we're in the presence of a celeb, Rosie, because of all the people that's been mentioned on the podcast so far. Your name comes up in almost every episode.
Wow, I feel so loved.
You're doing a good job of your LinkedIn.
It was time.
It was time. Yeah, I don't know. People just always referencing the content that you put out.
I'm glad it's useful.
Yeah, it's good. It's getting in front of people, that's for sure.
That's included. I had that in my notes. Did you? I didn't share. We randomly had the same intro note, Jake. That's great. I wanted to say the same thing. So yeah, we're
giving away more of the DIY vibe that we haven't shared notes on.
I was a bit late to LinkedIn. The two people, well, firstly it was Daphne, who I know you've spoken to, and because basically I started writing on Medium, and I was very happy on Medium in my little hole of Medium people not posting on LinkedIn, and Daphne was like, "Really, come on, you need to post on LinkedIn." I was like, "I don't want to." And then Steve Young was like, "You're snoozing if you're not posting on LinkedIn," and I was like, fine.
Steve P. Young.
Steve P. Young, he does App Masters on YouTube, and he's good.
I know. I funny
You've
enough,
been on there, haven't you?
Yeah. Funny enough, yesterday, I think he's on the newsletter for this podcast. Subscribe if you don't. If not subscribed yet, he replied to the email from yesterday saying, "Why am I not on there yet?" So. Steve.
Well, I've name dropped him now.
Exactly. Now you that's your cue, basically. It's gonna happen.
Well, thanks to him and Daphne, they pushed me. I only post on LinkedIn once a week, because I refuse to do it anymore.
But then Medium seems like more of a commitment because significantly longer form, right?
Yeah. But I'm the type of person who I can't really just hover over things or dip my toe in. I have to be all in. In physics class in school, I was I don't get any of this. And then there's a tipping point where I was like, right, I've got it all. So Medium allows me to go really deep, which is I think why the LinkedIn posts do quite well, because I've already thought about the thing at length. I've normally written it a month ago. Yeah. I've thought about every angle, and then I take the diagram from the Medium article it's got the most arrows on it, and then I post it on LinkedIn, and it does well.
Yeah. Do you have a strategy for Medium, what in terms of topics on, or how to write or how to distribute it? How do you get like a successful article on Medium? Because it used to be, I remember a few years ago, it used to be the thing that some CEOs and founders would be like, we don't really need a blog, we just write on Medium and get the exposure that way. Like, I don't know, is this still the same or did it change?
Yeah, it's got its own audience and there's publications. So I write for the UX Collective and they've got, I think it's like 500,000 or 700,000 followers. So they've got a newsletter, you get push notifications on the app to content in that. And I was really lucky. It was my first article. They just found it. It must have been keywords or something. And they just commented and we were like, we would love to publish this. And so now most of my articles I publish in the UX Collective. So that's like, already that's like a load of reach. And then Medium boosts certain articles as well. So in my charts, I can see a little dot on the graph which says Medium boosted your article because it thinks it's high quality. So they get boosted and it's on the UX Collective and that seems to do well. And then you kind of get selected as like the top picks. So your articles in the push notifications of people who have the Medium app. So I think it's just in-depth content. It's not that fluffy, I hope. I don't like to read fluffy stuff. I write stuff I want to read and I've got a low attention span. So I try and get to the point and it's always on apps and it's always a popular app. I've written a couple things that were like how-to articles and they flopped. So I'm just doing like UX reviews of like Duolingo, Calm, Bumble, Tinder, all the big apps. Strava, got one just it's ready to be published. So yeah, it's just, and I geek out about them too. So I'm like using apps and I'm like, I love this screen. And I think I've only published I've published 16 things, but I've got 51 drafts.
Oh, wow.
So it's like every time I have an idea, I just like, it's like my kind of, not to-do list, it's like my notes page. It's like, oh, amazing. Like I was using the post office app and it's amazing. So that's one. Fantasy football have amazing push notifications. So that's another one. But they're not drafts as in like I've not written them. It's just title, bullet point. That's it.
Yeah, ideas, and that's how you save your, Okay.
Do you get any kind of inbound consulting leads through Medium?
A lot of people come to me on GrowthMentor through Medium. I think there's been a few clients that have come through. Yeah, some do come through. Not. I wouldn't say there's loads. Maybe it's like 4 a month. It's not more than 1 a week, and it really depends how often I'm posting. Like I haven't posted for a couple of weeks on Medium because I've been.
Yes, all right.
Can you see your reach?
Yes, it was 50,000 was the best month.
Wow,
that's pretty cool. And you said a couple of weeks ago that I think you openly said that there's an article that got you like 300 quid or something, or maybe more than that. Maybe I misremembered.
Update on that. At the time, I think it was 500 quid. It's made over £1,000.
Wow, that's nice.
One article. So people just liked that one. That was the Calm article around the how they tried to get me back. Yeah.
Well, how did you make money from it?
So Medium, you as a writer, you get paid, and I think for writers and creators, I think it's a little bit of a dubious payment scheme. But essentially, a Medium subscription is £50 a year. If you, as a subscriber, read 5 things, each of those authors get 10 of those pounds each. So it's someone's subscription divided by the things that they read. I think there might be some sort of read time calculation in there, but essentially the more people who are subscribers that read your stuff, the more they get paid. Well, the more you get paid, sorry.
That's cool. So you need to have an audience of people that basically don't want to read too much and they just read your stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to write shorter stuff. Like all my writing's like 8 to 10 minute reads, and I'm like, this is too long. So I'm trying to shorten them.
So how did you kind of end up in this world of growth?
That's a good question. I started in PR and communications at a consultancy in London. It was really fun. But then after a while, it was a bit boring just writing a load of journalist briefings and PR articles and stuff. And then I went into What 3 Words as a growth manager. But it was essentially a data analyst role. I was just analysing the A/B tests of the product team. But the growth team there was cool. I'm in contact with all of them and they're all amazing. And so that got me enthusiastic about growth. And then I went into a super early stage. I think it was pre-seed and it was a sex therapy app for women called Furly, and I was running the growth process. I went through startup core strengths with Matt Lerner. That was amazing. And then I went to Peanut, which was more of a product growth role. And now I'm freelance.
Nice. And what's your preferred kind of speciality of those? Is it on the product side? It seems so from your, breakdown of UX and things like that.
I think that's the most fun, personally. Just playing around with screens, trying to work out how you can get more people to a certain action or increase retention. But I think less about where in the funnel I'm working. It's more about like the team and the people and the culture. If there's autonomy, if there's the ability to focus, if you can run a growth process, if you're working with other people, I like that. I don't really mind if, it could be top of funnel, bottom funnel, could be marketing, could be more, CRM, retention stuff. As long as you've got the autonomy and the targets and everything's nice like that, that's the best. So I don't think I have a preference per se. I love UX stuff, but it's more about the environment, I think, that matters.
How do you find the switch from, I guess, working more brand side to now being freelance and trying to get, clients and working with, I guess, maybe less close to internal teams? And how do you find it?
I really like it, personally. I think I used to think, you can have a strategy, you can have the ideas, you can, have a roadmap and the growth model to how to grow, and that was it. And you could do that. You could come in, you could grow a company, get out, great. That doesn't really work like that because there's people involved. So there's like stakeholder management and there's politics and there's all this stuff that really slows things down. And I find as a freelancer, you get heard a lot better, actually, I find. And you can have more of an impact across lots of different companies. And I'm learning a lot faster at the moment. I think you do reach a learning ceiling, maybe because you can't people manage that much necessarily. You can't grow a team. So at the moment, I'm learning a lot. And then I think I'll probably hit a ceiling at some point and then maybe want to go back in-house. But at the moment, it's like I wake up and it's not like I need to start at 9. I wake up and I'm like, I know I need to deliver these things for these clients this week. I can wake up at 7, I can wake up at 10, and then just as the more efficiently I can do those things, the better I can do those things, and you just chill out afterwards. Like it's so much more relaxed because you've got things to do, you do the things, and then you're not stressing or guilty in the other time.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you find it, Yo?
Yeah, same. I think it's a good summary. I think what I liked about doing it is eventually you find a team that you really like, and then that's where you can go full time, because they need you at a time where maybe they don't need you full time, but if you do some good job, then they do need someone full time because there's some momentum, the product is there, or the marketing is there, or like whatever. Like there's something in the metrics that gives you the right signals, and you like the team, you like the founders, and you like the mission, and you full time. That's how it happened for me. So
it's like a sneak peek at all these different companies, because I think a lot of the time I found personally, like you can be in an interview for a growth role, you can ask about LTV and CAC and runway and growth rate and all these things, and then you get in there and they're measuring everything wrong and nothing's like you thought it was, and then it's like a car crash.
Exactly. It's not like everyone lies, but in an interview, everyone is kind of putting a sugar coating on, like all their metrics, their vision. Everyone's loving each other. We're a family, like all these kind of things. Like, no, that's not. It's usually not true. But then it's the degree of how deep is the sugar coat? Is it is it just
deep?
a little layer or is it a big one? That's where you find out.
Because I used to think back at some roles and think, oh, did I not ask the right questions? Did I not do my due diligence? And did I just, jump ship? Did I move without knowing what I was going to? And then thinking back, I'm like, no, I think I did ask good questions. I think maybe you can always ask more, but I don't think you'll ever know what a place is like until you actually join it. So being a freelancer, you can literally work with 6 different companies. You can see all the metrics. You can understand that you can't understand a culture of a place from an interview. So it's like a really long trial period, and then no strings attached as well. So I personally, it's really working for me at the moment.
And what are you working on at the moment? Can you share a little bit about what's happening in your day-to-day right now? What's exciting?
What's exciting? So I mainly work with B2C subscription apps. I have a particular client who has an amazing growth rate and all these metrics are like, they're not sugar coated at all. They're all real. and they're great. And that's probably the one I'm most excited about. And they are raising at the moment, so helping put together the stats for the fundraising deck, working out how we measure retention, working out how to show that, trying to find some benchmarks. So I think, yeah, it really ranges from, like, I wrote a load of push notifications the other day, did a strategy the other day, and then putting into an investor deck like this week. So it really varies, and I like that.
Yeah,
that's the nice thing, I think, just the pure range of stuff that you get to do. I was a terrible freelancer, not good to freelance, because at the end it would get to like the 15th of the month and I'd be like, oh shit, I didn't actually send any of my invoices for last month.
I'm quite on it with my invoices. I'm like, pay me.
I think you got to be. I'm not good. I'm just cut out to be paid on a set day and not have to think about it.
Past midnight 01, Rosie sends the invoice straight away. This is today's the day.
So Rosie, the company that you just said that they're growing super fast, they you told us that you enjoy kind of thinking about product market fit and finding that and measuring it. Are they at that stage? Are they growing kind of at this magic point where they haven't necessarily found it yet, or they have found it and nailed it?
We've done the product market fit survey. The superhuman product market fit survey, where how disappointed would you be if you could no longer use the product? Very disappointed. Not disappointed, somewhat disappointed. And it was like, way over 40%, 1.5 times over 40%, very disappointed. And the retention shows it too. And the growth rate, when we're not really spending that much and growing like 20 to 30% month on month with big numbers, like not necessarily like, it's not like 200 people, it's like thousands. So yeah, I think normally I like to measure product market fit in a couple ways, so that you're not just relying on one and then remeasure it, so that you're making sure it's like not fudged in any way. If you get the same result over and over, then you're probably measuring it all right. To me, it's like, okay, this one thing's looking like a good indicator. These other things are also looking like a good indicator. And then it's like the mixed methods. So I think, it's triangulating is another way to say it. Customer stuff, quantitative and qualitative.
Yeah, I love that, triangulating PMF. That's a good way to say it. Yeah, because I think with the product market fit surveys, if someone said to me, "Would you be disappointed if Instagram shut down tomorrow?" I would just say no. But then I know in reality, probably in a few months' time, I'll be laying there bored thinking, oh, fuck, I wish I could scroll through Instagram for a bit. So I think it's definitely important to have a couple of different ways to look at it.
Yeah, I also think a certain cohort of people don't actually understand the question. Like, if you've got an older audience and it's like, how disappointed would you be if you can no longer use this product? They're like, but I can use this product. So I think the actual question is not, if you're, second language English maybe, or if you're only, too young, too old maybe to understand the question. Like, I think for us it's quite common, but I know I've seen some user feedback that like, I don't get this.
Is the question not a little bit convoluted, like almost like a double negative, and it makes it a bit tricky to understand from the first? Is there better other questions you can ask, or like have you tried other stuff?
It's hard because I think like you said, Jake, you can say one thing, but you'll do another thing. You can say you love it. You can say you'd be super disappointed, or opposite. But then you can also look at the retention metric of how many people actually come back.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think, all questions are challenging and have their downsides. So look at retention as well. And if it's a good chunk of people coming back, then it's probably on the way or already at product market fit.
What other metrics you mentioned? There could be other things. Like, do you have any other examples of like things qualitative, quantitative that you could look at besides the survey?
So retention is the main one. So if people come in month 1, what percentage of people come in again on month 2? I think 40% is really strong. So 40% of people coming back, that would be really good. Activation as well. Like, how hard is it for people to get in and get the thing? Like 40% as well. Like, if 40% of people are getting to your core metric in the first day, in the first session, that is really good. And there's also general, like, how hard is it to grow? Like, is it like sluggish and hard and single digit and you're struggling for ideas and everyone's like, or is it feeling like, wow, that graph's going up? And I know that's really vague. And I really was in most businesses was sluggish. But this one, it's like, it's hard to keep up. So there is that kind of feeling, I think. But quantitative, qualitative, multiple metrics. Also, like, don't spend too long on it. You want to be fixing for it and solving for it more than you're measuring it, I think.
Yeah. Do you feel like you need a little bit of paid acquisition when you're trying to find product market fit to also validate that you can acquire customers with one channel at a cost that is sustainable for the business? Do you take also that into account, or maybe it comes a bit later?
Yeah, I normally actually work with products. So I haven't done that many launches. So I've normally come in and there's already users, and sometimes there's already a channel turned on. It is hard to, if you've got a tiny sample size and you've got no users coming in because you've not sorted out your acquisition, it's hard to measure any of these things because your sample size is too low. Like if there's less than like, I don't know, 1,000 users, that's really low. And then it's really hard because as soon as you start segmenting retention by market or retention by maybe the interest that they input into the onboarding or age, your numbers get too small to be able to compare them, and it's all super noisy. So I think me personally, I normally work with products who already have an audience, but if not, then turn a tap on. You need a couple of months to optimize a paid channel. But a lot of the time it can just be helpful to get the sample size to do the analyses even before you run an A/B test. So I think it can be useful.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because if you're growing based, let's say purely on referrals, and you could like zoom out with that and say not necessarily a product, but you could just be like an agency that grows through referrals. It's like you need to have product market fit for when you get to a point where you need to grow faster than you're growing through referrals. So it's like when you bring someone in cold who hasn't been referred into the business, are they able to find value quick enough without that destroying your measure of PMF? If you get to a point where you get a massive influx of investment or injection of investment, and then you need to turn the taps on and you bring people in and they're not finding value, then that's like quite an interesting place to be because it's like you need to be able to convey that message easily and get people in to find value quicker than if they're just being referred in by a friend. And there's tons of apps that have grown purely through referrals, and that's an interesting problem to have. It's quite a nice problem to have, probably.
Yeah,
rather than no channels working.
There are a couple of clients I've had where like the model is it's a celebrity or it's someone who has grown an audience in a different field. They then build an app and then they have organic acquisition into the app, and they come and they're like, I want to grow this at a higher rate. You can't just turn ads on because they have low context because they don't know that celebrity, that person. And then your onboarding has been optimized for the people who know the brand. And I often go in, if those sort of businesses, you go in and all the conversion rates are insane because obviously this person has built maybe a brand up over 20 years. And so your onboarding can look shit because they don't care because they love you and they can go in and have a great time. As soon as you turn ads on, different audience, different lower intent, your shitty onboarding doesn't really work anymore for that new audience. Your lifetime value goes down or your conversion rates go down. So I think acquisition channel is super important. And while you might have really low acquisition costs from like a channel, for say you've written a book and that is your acquisition channel, you then do have a tricky time turning on another channel because they're not as good as the book, but the book is not as scalable and doesn't have a high growth rate. So not struggling, but working through that with some clients, and then that's where personalization comes in the onboarding. So you can try and give people what they need in order to get them from A to B to C.
Yeah, and user research, right? And that's something that you said that you enjoy talking about. How do you? What's your advice, I suppose, for a company that is like many companies, not really doing enough or any existing user research, or even not necessarily existing user, churn user research, et cetera, et cetera. What's the best place to start, do you think?
I think there's not necessarily an understanding of the different types of user research and the fact that some can be super easy. Because I think one is that people don't know they're not doing enough user research. They think that just reading app reviews is good enough. It's not. It's like either the creme de la creme of people who love you or it's the people who hate you so much. And I think the main misconception is that you need a load of time. And that, I think a lot of businesses do 3-month big research project on one thing and it takes so much time and energy and then it's a big report that gets dusty. That is a model that lots of people use. But if you don't have a research team and you need to actually make some changes, think it's like seeping user research into your process It's a lot more scalable, easy for the team, easy to get buy-in. You don't necessarily even need to get buy-in for user research if you can try and just put it into your process without necessarily telling anyone. So that could be like in the settings of the app, you have a Calendly link, like give the team feedback, you have a type form in there. So people, if there's a way in which you can automatically get people to book in Calendly, like 20-minute 20-minute calls every week, then you're accountable to actually speaking to people properly, and not trying to cram too much into that interview, and just trying to talk to users often, integrate it into some sort of process. Don't make a big thing about it because then it freaks people out and they end up never doing it. But yeah, surveys is a very valuable user research method too. So I think using a range of different things and not making sure that you don't scare people off with it because they're like, this is going to take us weeks and weeks. Like, no, 20 minutes, quick bullet point list. Yeah, I think there's different ways.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's important also to use it to revisit your kind of core customer personas, especially for an early launch app or business where it's like a load of effort goes into, this is June and she likes this kind of thing, and then everything is built around that. You get some users in, you're like, oh, these don't align with the kind of made up persona that we assumed at the start. We'd use this product, we're going to scrap it and start all over again. I personally, it's going to be a controversial point, interesting to see what you guys think, I'm not a fan at all of customer personas. Putting it out there. Agree or disagree?
I think there's pros and I think with any kind of framework, you can take the basics from it. You don't actually have to do it. Personas from a diversity and inclusion perspective aren't that great because a lot of the time you put a picture on there and it might be like a white guy or it might be like a certain type of person, and then your brain will naturally try and find you more people like that. So I think there's the diversity downside to personas. They're a bit niche, but I think having a visual of a person is good. So the things that I personally take away is I try to, every time I do a user interview, I have a card, I draw a cartoon of them or I've taken a screenshot of them with their permission, put it on like, this is Jerry, key quote that reminds me of Jerry, like this was his problems, this is where he went for solutions, this was his journey, really light touch, it's visual, and it's just people, if you look at that in 6 months' time, you're going to jig your memory about Jerry. If you look at a bullet point list in a Slack channel in 6 months' time, you're not going to remember Jerry. So I think for me, it's the visual aspect of it and the summarizing. I wouldn't necessarily, only then go after a Jerry. Like, you need a quantity of these, like, a lot of them over time. And you have to be quite strict as well. It's like, oh, I love Jerry, but he didn't pay for it, so maybe we shouldn't go after Jerry. So I think
that's cool.
With any framework, take the fundamentals, whatever they are, and just use them as opposed to be militant about the way in which you implement something. Because I'm just so tired of all these frameworks.
It's really. I like your answer. I'm the same as you, Jake. I never like personas in the more traditional, maybe old school sense of what they used to be, or they used to be taught in marketing, like more traditional marketing, like classes or whatever. And but I like your answer, Rosie. I think it's cool to reference a customer, have like some sort of like something to go back to that reminds you of that customer, but also know that it's one customer. And they have attributes, and it's good to have a note of that, but not make it the whole product around that one person. I've seen in some of the companies that either on freelance or, well, I think it was mostly on the freelance time that I had. There was a couple of them that was like, they literally started making personas based on nothing. Just like their subjective opinion. And I was like, what the fuck
that's
is
the
that?
exact one that I mean.
It's like, how do you know that those two, like, whatever, like, and also on what you said, like, not diverse or inclusive at all, like, how do you know that these two are the ones that you want to, you haven't talked to anyone, you don't know anything, you haven't tested anything. It was like, that was a bad sign from the get-go. So I really like your answer.
Yeah, I think personas kind of jar with the whole job to be done idea, because everybody has a different need. and everybody has a different job to be done, regardless of what kind of persona they fall into. I think it's much easier to go that angle. And also, Rosie, from your side, I think it makes complete sense to start like post user, and you build your persona post having some users, rather than, as you just said, it's like, cool, day one of the business, let's think of who this is going to appeal to, because then you're just always disappointed, or you're always going after the wrong thing, and you build the product and the roadmap around features that you think Jerry is going to want, but you've never actually met a Jerry. And then John comes in, you're like, John's not our target customer, sack him off. But you don't know that you could have mad growth with John if you just met his requirements.
I've also gone through, when I was working at Furley, we thought, okay, no, let's not use personas. What other frameworks were out there? And we started this thing called Mindsets. I think we found it on Medium somewhere. Classic Medium. And we used this thing called Mindsets, where it's like, what mindset is this person in? And it was so vague and so fluffy, and we just went round in circles trying to use this. So I think, like, whilst there's downsides of having something concrete and specific and niche, I think it helps you make decisions. Like, my process would be, like, you first look at the data, you work out who's retaining, what country, what things are they doing. Sometimes that analysis is hard, but, if they listen to a sleep exercise and retain better than someone listened to a mindfulness exercise, then you might say, okay, let's go after people who care about sleep. Do some research, find out what keeps them up at night, literally and figuratively. Like, where else did they go for solutions? And then you start to build your framework, but it's based on the fact that that person retains better, or maybe they've got a higher lifetime value. And then after all that information, you might, do a little visual representation of what this high quality user means. But I definitely wouldn't put something on paper without that quantitative and qualitative triangulation.
Back to that. I want to, there's something cool that I've discovered recently. I don't know if maybe one of you knows about it yet, but talking about gathering information, we spoke about surveys and maybe like in the flow, injecting even within the product, like Typeform and things like that. There is this company that is called Spellbound. Have you heard of Spellbound? They integrate third-party apps within emails, so the emails all become dynamic. So emails can become a game. Emails can be within your template, could have the Calendly, for example, embedded within your brand. And one use case for this that was really cool was from Mr. Beast, who sent an email to 200,000 people with a game within the email, which was the first user who clicks 500 times on that button will get, I don't know, it was like $100,000 or something crazy. That email got 2 million clicks off of 200,000 people. So it's like 10 clicks per user, right?
Shit.
So it games the old email thing, because you get like a massive amount of like click-through rate within your email. And the average was 10 clicks per user. And after 10 clicks, if you were too slow, you still got something. Like you got a present, or there was like a surprise or something. But first of all, it looked great. I'll share it with you, the link. I'll try and put it in the show notes as well for this episode. But so yeah, it's this company, and I've never seen that before. So there's like very creative way you can use that. So then every time your users or whatever receive an email from you, they can expect something a bit more than everyone else. Like it could be a game, it could be like an interesting survey, or something that you're gonna more interactions within the email itself, without having to link away from the email. That's the trick. That's the beauty.
Yeah. I've seen like embedded user research, like questions in the email, and I feel like that might get you more responses. I'm just going to open the email, not the email, the window, because I'm allergic to wasps, and a wasp has just come in. It's very stressful.
Oh no.
I like that you said, I'm just going to open the email.
Yeah, I was like, no. I've got a funny story about being allergic to wasps, if you want to go off piece of it. Last Christmas, I was asleep. It was 3 a.m. on Christmas Day, and I got stung by a watch on my wrist. And I've been stung many times in my life. Like that year, I got stung a couple of times. and then I just like reacted to it, and my arm grew like a Michelin man. And I had like this reaction, but the ambulances were on strike and I kept getting disconnected, so I just lay there watching like Netflix with my sister with this enormous arm. And ever since then, the doctor was like, that was really serious, you should have come in. I was like, it was Christmas, you know, like, come on, I'm not going to A&E on Christmas. So now I have to unfortunately bring an EpiPen with me, but apparently there's a max amount you can get stung in your life, so beware. I've hit the.
Is that true?
Yeah, so I've hit
what,
the peak.
When they just won't sting you anymore?
No, as in like other way round.
I don't know.
I can't, like, there's a max amount of venom that your body can take, like sting.
Oh right.
Yeah. So I'm immune now. They just don't come near me.
I thought you might have so much venom in your body that it like turns them off.
I think you become a Marvel character, the wasp. Yeah, you actually get
wasp powers. Lady.
Maybe it was a superpower you got in your arm. You should have used it.
Cool. Yeah, so you should have seen it.
Hang on. The more you get stung, there becomes a point where you can't take it anymore, and it gets worse for you.
Yeah, and so like apparently now, if I keep getting stung, like my heart will stop or something. It starts with an anaphylactic shock, and then you're. I had a mini anaphylactic shock. I had everything minus the throat closing. Next time it will be throat closing, and then after that you could get heart problems.
Yeah, it's pretty serious. You need a. Do you have an EpiPen now with you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I just don't know where I put it.
Well, that's not.
It's in the bag. It's in my bag. That's why I was like, should I open the window? That wasp still hasn't left though. It's literally on. Anyways, I don't.
Have you seen any Asian hornets yet?
I think I saw one the other day. I'm not quite sure.
They're pretty scary. A huge wasp, an Asian hornet.
I thought it was a film.
I used to live in.
I was like, is that the new film coming out?
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
Very good.
Yeah. They're big though. I used to live in Southeast Asia when I was younger, and they were like enormous.
Oh, well, great segue into maybe talking a little bit about growth models and forecasting.
I was like, how is he going to save this?
The growth of your forearm, Rosie. Obviously.
I love it.
There's no good segue to this. Let's talk a little bit about forecasting growth. To be honest, that's something that I'm really interested in, because I feel like my version of this is again very DIY. So maybe I need a little bit of some frameworks.
Just make up the numbers, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Just open Google Sheets and it's like, just apply a coefficient to all the cells and you go, you drag it to 2026 and then you good to go,
Bish,
pray
bash,
that you don't
bosh.
die. Yeah, bish bash bosh. Exactly. So do you have any tips for us? Like, how do you start with this?
It's funny because I feel like most growth people, I feel like everyone does it their own way, and we're all just there creating these random little messy Google Sheets. So I'm trying now to build a template for one which I can actually reuse. But a lot of businesses are so different that you can't actually use the same model.
Yeah.
I think it is quite scary for a lot of people to start, because staring at a blank. I love fiddling with the Google Sheet and just plugging things, changing things, seeing if it works. Some people find it really scary, like just staring at a blank sheet. So I normally take quite a few iterations, but I start, depends. If it's like, what budget do we need to spend to get to here? Or it might be like, how do we get to here? Like, you can start with the end and start with where you are. And then having a general idea of your growth model is a good start. So I think before you even get to the sheet, get a Miro board or a FigJam. Users come in, users do this thing, users pay us, they pay us this amount, this many people renew, like really basic. And then you put that into number form, and then you put that number form into the sheet. Then when it gets hard is the retention part of it. How many people come back? That's when it gets really hard. I don't think I've personally nailed that, but I generally just do, of the people that are using the product in the time period, how many are new, how many are returning, and then how much you need to improve both those numbers to get to your desired result. And I like it as a visual tool to be able to say, hey, to get from A to B, this is the result you want. You're going to have to spend this amount. and here's the 3 levers that are the biggest to move that. This one, you want to move this lever, but look what happens if you move that lever. Nothing really changes, so we should focus on this lever, and you're going to need to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds.
It always comes down to that at the end when scale comes into the discussion. But that's good. It's good way to visualize.
Yeah, I like that. I think you can always kind of uncover a lever that looks. I mean, the one that always does it for me is like if you have paid acquisition in there, is the click-through rate of your ads. Because people are like, I need to improve my conversion rate by 15% to make this work. You're like, but if you just get your click-through rate, which is dog shit at the moment, like 0.13 to 1%, you're like tripling your revenue every single month. And that, in my opinion, is an easy lever. You have to you put a ton of experiments in an iterative kind of creative design process in there, and you can drive that up. And a way that we sometimes approach it at Hex is that a client will say, like, this is my problem, and I'll go in and look at all the different areas from their acquisition all the way through to their retention, and you take like the 5 areas that you think are most impactful, just as you said, Rosie, and then you just map out like what happens if we just increase each of these by 10%. So not like going from 1% conversion rate to 11% conversion rate. It's like going from 1% to 1.1%, and things that really shouldn't be too difficult to do if you have experimentation and testing in there. And then that kind of demystifies the process a bit, because it's like, how do I change my conversion rate to get to where I want to be? But you're like, no, actually you only have to tweak your conversion rate by a tiny amount, and your click-through rate by a tiny amount, and then your retention rate by a tiny amount, and that all has massive compounding impacts across the board. I think that's quite a nice way to approach it, because then you don't feel too stressed focusing on changing one thing. You can do a load of experiments across the board, and compounding it kind of ramps up, and it can get them to where they want to go.
And I think at the beginning, a lot of teams are newly formed growth teams, or maybe all the levers are new, especially in an early stage business. Yeah. And you might think, oh, if we just increase that, we can result in great growth, or if we just increase that. But then you might find that it's actually really hard to move one of those things, and it's not hard to move the other one of those things. So first is mapping things out, theoretically, then putting it into a sheet, then coming out with the things you might want to move. And then it's the process of working out how easy they are to move, because some are way harder than others. Pricing, for example, you can just put it up.
Yeah.
Pricing is, I found that like conversion rates in like a B2C app, like the biggest thing you can change is how well you monetize, like putting the paywall a bit earlier, pricing, copy. Those things are quite easy to do and have quite a big impact versus, it depends, ad creative. If you've been testing for a while, maybe you've hit a ceiling there already, and maybe there's some easier places to move the needle. So I think it depends on, your team, and maybe they've exhausted a lever already, and now it's just incremental tiny things as opposed to like a big lever somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree. And in checkout upsells, I think it's quite a big one sometimes, especially for an e-com or for a charity. Charity doesn't have, their revenue comes from donations, if you're talking about kind of digital fundraising. And then you can do interesting things that partner with a print on demand, and it's like someone donates and you say, great, you can buy an exclusive X, whatever the charity name is, like donor tote for a tenner, and that's got a little bit of margin baked in there, and then they're getting even more revenue from that. And so it's not necessarily always about increasing average order value, but not necessarily by increasing the price of the individual items, but it's like, how can you do a creative upsell? Yeah, exactly.
On monetization, do you have a framework to know, for example, you've got an app that charges, I don't know, £4 a month, and you're like, okay, we're gonna go to 6, because even if we lose, I don't know, 20% of our users, we're still good, we're still making more money. Do you have like a few steps? I know you do, because I've seen your presentation. Was it last year at the promotion summit? How do you approach like pricing like that? Because you said like it is one of the easiest, because technically in an app, especially in app subscription ecosystem, like it's pretty straightforward to change the price, the code, or whatever, or like within the app store. But how do you research that before making the change?
How I used to do it is random. How I do it now is slightly different. Not random, but I used to be like, oh, do some competitor research. Where is our app compared to everyone else? Okay, they charge more. Let's just go with that. I think I found that most apps charge too cheap. There's this fear that no one's going to buy it. So what they end up doing is putting it out for lower, but then it's harder to increase the price because your community is like in uproar especially if they talk to each other about it. So pricing low is a common first time, like, I guess, mistake. You're worried no one's going to buy it, so you do it too cheap. But nowadays there's a easy survey that you can send out called the Van Westendorp pricing survey, and it's essentially got 4 main questions. It's like, how cheap would it be for you to think or be suspicious about the quality? How expensive would be expensive but you'd still buy it? How expensive would be stupidly expensive and you wouldn't buy it? And then what would be a good price? And then there's some extra questions which are, say your headspace, and you say, if you think about Calm and 0 to 100, where would you put us against Calm? Like, how would you rate us against like this competitor, higher or lower? So that's sort of easy decision making for a user, higher or lower, less or more. That's quite good. Another thing is, like, if you're trying to work out what would maybe be in an extra premium tier, here's all the features, how would you rank them in highest to lowest? So there's like various questions you can ask people. One is around those 4 Van Westendorp pricing questions, and once you've got your results to that, you can then plot what's too expensive, what's too cheap for the majority of users, and there's a little gap in the middle, which is like the area that you should then test in. And I would say go more expensive, and then you can always do some sort of concessions for students, or you can do discounts, or you can do upsells, and there's various ways you can go above and below, but just don't do too cheap. And you can do a very easy bit of research about, how should we price, what should we put in our subscription tiers, how should we price ourselves against competitors. And I think a lot of people just kind of put a stick in the sand, which you can do, but it's also like it doesn't take that long to survey some users.
Exactly. And how do you do that to your own customers?
Yeah, so I think they have to have used it before. Else then, if not, you're going to have to say, like, imagine you were using this product, and then it's not as accurate, because then you can lead people one way or another. So ideally it's to your current customers. Ideally it's like 200 people or so. And maybe you don't have 200 people. If that's the case, you could try and, chat in more detail to maybe 5. So it really depends like how many people you have, but ideally it's around 200 200 customers who are already there.
Yeah. You want about 200 answers.
Yeah,
to make it like at least a few hundred to make it worthwhile. That's interesting, because I think in most apps, their price, especially at the beginning, comes from just like literally a bit of guessing work and a bit of like you said, like underestimating your product because you're not sure. But what I find very interesting is when usually like there's someone like me would come in as a freelance person, like they would just like, it would just be a given, like, oh, this is our strategy, and how did you come about this? It's like, oh, we just picked it in like August 2021, and it's like, oh, you haven't tested anything? Like, no, that's like, and then they feel kind of blocked within that framework. It's like, no, remember, like, you just picked something in the wind, like, like maybe you could charge £10 and people would still value your product the same way, and you would have made like 10x the revenue since then, so yeah, fine, but it's good. That's great. I'm gonna look it up for sure.
Rosie, what about kind of mentors? You gave us a bit of your kind of history into your career. Did you have a mentor? Are you a mentor to other people right now? What's your kind of feeling on that? And this is off the back of last episode, we had Lewis on, and it was like a first one in a little run that we're going to do about interesting ways that people got in, a kind of inspiration for younger people looking to break into the world of growth and marketing. And I think mentors is a really interesting one, something you mentioned that you would be interesting to talk about. I had a great mentor and still do have one, and Yo, I don't know about you probably, but
is it me?
Rosie? No. No, I'm sorry to say it's not. Rosie, how about you? What do you think about mentors?
I have a load of mentors. Like, I think both sides of mentoring, being a mentee and being a mentor, is so valuable. So I was first a mentee, but I never called them my mentors. So it was at What Three Words, I said like the team was amazing. Like I loved the team at What Three Words and I learned so much from them. And I went from that into kind of the deep end of a growth role where I had to do analytics, product, marketing, brand, like everything. And I was really in the deep end and I thought, okay, I need to speak to someone. I feel like I'm going nuts. And so I just reached out to my it's always old colleagues. And then so I reached out and I was like, hey, I've got this product idea, but I'm not sure about it. Would you be open to chatting? And then they would chat. And afterwards I said, this was so useful. Can I make this recurring? Like every 6 weeks, every 4 weeks? They were like, yeah, sure. And so I did that for product. I did that for performance marketing. I did that for analytics. And then I had this amazing like group of people. And I said to them, please, can you let me pay you? Because I get so much value out of this. And all of them were like, no, we get a lot of value about this too, because they could share things with me as well. And they would get feedback. So it kind of turned into peer mentoring. And so I had someone who's now a UX lead at Klarna. They're my like product go-to. The performance marketing person at Thriver, they're my performance marketing go-to. And then shout out to Rich and Ben. And then funnily enough, someone who interviewed me but didn't work at the company, I just felt really vibey with them on the interview. And then I was like, I've really enjoyed this. I literally can't speak to anyone about analytics. I literally just Google it. I've got no one senior in analytics who's personable and will like, wants to answer my questions. He was like, oh, I'd love to be your mentor. Just hit me up whenever. And so that's my kind of, they used to be head of data somewhere and that's some good companies. So I've got data, I try and like cover all my bases. And then it also means that sometimes if you're struggling in a role, not being listened to, you can say, this person with this title at this company said this thing, and it's so much better. So I think the mentoring side, and I still pull on those strings because they're so helpful. And if you've got imposter syndrome and you're like, I can't do this, someone will be like, you can do this actually. And you're like, oh yeah, I can't I? And Daphne's a really good mentor to me as well. Like going freelance, I just didn't know what to do, and she's always super helpful. So Daphne as well is another one, more on like the, what's the contract? What should my terms be? Like that sort of stuff. Do you have an accountant I can use? So I think that's the mentee side. And then the mentor side, I signed up to GrowthMentor by Daphne suggested it when I started out. Didn't have any clients. She was like, it's good practice. And I was feeling quite low after my last job. I didn't feel like I was good in the job. And then these people on GrowthMentor, they always need your help, and you're so much more of a specialist than they are because they're trying to juggle too many things. So everything you say is gold, and it makes you feel like the shit. So if you're struggling with imposter syndrome, just do some mentoring, and the bar is really low, and like you don't have to be you might think I've got nothing to say, I'm not an expert, but everyone thinks that. And then when you end up speaking to these like this girl in a bedroom who has this idea, she will love everything you say because you are an expert if you look at it in terms of like years experience versus these people. So I think get some mentors, just reach out to people and be a mentor as well. Be a mentee, be a mentor. It's amazing. I love it. So useful.
That's awesome. And also mentors don't necessarily have to be more senior than you. I find like sometimes relationship can go either way. It can be someone like that is more junior than you, but is more specialized into that one thing, like you said, that is very valuable to you. And also mentors don't even need to know they are your mentors. They could just be people that you just consume all their content. They don't even know that you're like lurking for everything they write or say on a YouTube video. And for me, one of them, for funny enough, and I did say that to him in different words, but Steve Young, like I watched his YouTube videos from like 6 years ago, like from the early days. Like I was watching all the videos, and like Loki was like a mentor on the app side of things for many like for a long period of time. And when I met him for the first time, was it last year? I was like, man, I'm like Star Trek. Like
wow.
I like consume so much of your stuff you didn't even know, like commenting sometimes. Oh, this is great, thanks for sharing. But that could also be a version of like mentoring or having a mentor. So
yeah, it's good. Just get those recurring meetings in, super short, 20-30 minutes, come prepared, like send them things in advance, ask them if they want any feedback on things from you, and I think it keeps it short, keeps it quick, and keeps it really efficient.
Yeah. All right.
That's gone super quick.
Yeah. Maybe it's because you were 15 minutes late, Jake.
No, because we've gone 15 minutes over. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rosie.
Perfect. I will go and sit in the sun. Then I'm going to go for a swim.
Yeah.
Oh, lucky. It's the life of a freelancer, isn't it?
Life of a freelancer. Amazing.
Love it. Bye.
Dope.